Looking for a trusted supplier for all your household hardware needs? Look no further than Competitive Hardware Limited. We provide top quality building materials including cement, all types of iron sheets, paints, PPR and PVC pipes, electric pipes, building grills, BRC and square till in various sizes. Need interior and finishing materials? We've got you covered with gypsum rails, marine boards, ceiling boards and tanks of all sizes. For fencing, we stock barbed wire, chain link and wire mesh. And the best part, we offer free countrywide delivery with our fleet of transit trucks and pickups. Your order arrives on time, every time. Visit us in Kitengela along Namanga Highway, opposite 411 stage, or at our branches in Kitusuru and Busia. For enquiries, call us on 020-26-88-888 or 0733-666632 or 0721-923248. Competitive Hardware Limited, your reliable hardware supplier. Almarai Company, in collaboration with Competitive Manpower, is urgently hiring for the following exciting roles: Grade 1 mechanics, panel beaters, refrigeration technicians, lead mechanics, diesel plant mechanics, welders and stainless steel welders. Why apply? This is a free recruitment with no application or placement fees required. Contact us today on 0721 506627 or 0733 392180. You can also visit us at WANGUTUSI Plaza, Kikorok Road. Alternatively, you can send an email to info@competitivemanpower.com. Apply now. Limited slots available.
Welcome to Competitive Training Institute, empowering you with in-demand skills. At Competitive Training Institute, we equip you with practical, job-ready skills that open doors both locally and internationally. Whether you're aiming to become a qualified caregiver, certified plumber, skilled automotive mechanic, or want to learn a foreign language like French, Arabic, or German, and many more, we've got the right course for you. Our hands-on training, guided by experienced instructors and aligned with market demands, ensures you're ready to compete and succeed in today's job market. We don't just train, we help you get hired. Our job placement team supports you in finding meaningful work after graduation. We are proudly accredited by NITA, ensuring high standards in all we offer. Ready to begin? Call us on 020-200-192 or 0721-223081 or email us at competitivetraining@gmail.com. Your journey starts here. Let's build your future together.
Join our team at AYTB in partnership with Competitive Manpower. AYTB is seeking qualified candidates for the following positions: technical advisor, QA or QC personnel, shop coordinator, report organizer, rotating equipment repair technician, valve overhaul technician, machining technician.
Contact us today on 0721 506627 or 0733 392180. You can also visit us at WANGUTUSI Plaza, Kikorok Road. Alternatively, you can send an email to info@competitivemanpower.com. Apply now. Limited slots available.
Hello and welcome to CBS Breakfast Show. My name is WANGUTUSI.
My name is DANFLOW, LINDWE.
And we have a beautiful show lined up for you this morning, starting with the dailies and the headlines that are across the different newspapers. So first is the Daily Nation, where it reads CS Mutua's Qatar police jobs fiasco.
And in Kenya's bold newspaper, that is the Standard, it reads, "Unmoved by bloodshed."
Nice. And then on Taifa Leo, it's Wampangia Ruto.
And on the People Daily, the headline reads, "Inside the big fight for Gen Z vote."
Yes, and lastly on the Business Daily, it's US flags Kenya as booming market for counterfeit goods. So those are the headlines that we have for you this morning. We'll start you off with the papers that we have in front of us. On the Daily Nation, CS Mutua's Qatar police jobs fiasco, so 250,000 last year. 250,000 is the amount of shillings that was spent by different people seeking these jobs. So last year, Labour Cabinet Secretary Alfred Mutua told a forum attended by President Ruto that Kenyans would secure jobs as police officers in Qatar, and job seekers have been paying up to 250,000 shillings. So just below that, the sub-headline reads, Kenyans desperate for jobs abroad are losing their cash to rogue recruitment agencies. These untouchable architects of the con game continue to rip off victims lured by false promises of a breakthrough in life, but it is grand betrayal when jobless Kenyans are now fleeced through a state-backed program. So this story is on page 2 and 3, and just below that, it's secrets of talks on 2027 opposition coalition against Ruto. So yesterday, on Tuesday, Kalonzo Musyoka, Martha Karua, Eugene Wamalwa, yes, and Fred Matiang'i finally appeared in the official meeting, and the secrets of talks of 2027 opposition coalition against Ruto. So opposition figures looking to craft an allegiance as they hope will topple President Ruto in the next general election to explore how to arrive at a joint flag bearer. But the initial talks revealed that the road ahead is treacherous and competing interests are a threat to unity. So that story is on page 4 and 5. Fred Matiang'i was away for some time, but he's now publicly appearing. Yesterday was his first public appearance. The picture there was shared across social media platforms. This was in Karen Blixen, where they were holding that meeting on the next steps forward.
And here on the bold Standard newspaper, unmoved by bloodshed. So there's a picture of the president, the Interior Cabinet Secretary, that is Kipchumba Murkomen, the IG of Police, Douglas Kanja, and the KDF, CDF, that is General Kahiriri. So, and it reads, even the nation reels from a damning, even as the nation reels from a damning expose revealing extrajudicial killings during last year's Gen Z protest, fresh reports have emerged of police firing live bullets at residents protesting an alleged land grab in Narok. Now, rights groups are now question whether President William Ruto and his security chiefs grasp their constitutional duty. Chief among them, the protection of human life. So the story goes on page 2, 4, and page 5. Definitely an interesting headline. Remember, this comes at the backdrop of the expose by BBC, and it shows security agents were actually allegedly, the expose alleges that, and it shows that it was security officials that were taking part in the killing of protesters during the 2024 June anti-tax protest. And we are seeing we've not yet seen any response from any of these security chiefs, either from the president, from the KDF, or even from the Ministry of Interior. So outrage, there's outrage over the brutal murder of Gen Z protesters last year and killings in Narok recently. So lawyers and human rights groups blame President Ruto and security officials for disregarding life. Interesting. Now, there's a quote here by Voice of Africa boss, that is Hussein Khalid, and he's a Vocal Africa boss. He's a human rights defender, and he says, both in Parliament and in Narok, large groups of people came out to express themselves on an issue involving the government. Instead of seeking amicable solutions, we have seen the state flex its muscles in both cases. Interesting headline there. Will they actually come out to respond to this? Because, and the Standard actually questions, do they understand their constitutional mandate, that is to protect human life and to serve the people of Kenya, and not to kill them?
Yes, that's Quite an interesting story. And now moving even to a different headline on Taifa Leo, what they are saying on Wampangia Ruto. So aliyekuwa waziri wa usalama wa ndani Daktari Fred Matiang'i hatimaye avunja kimya jana na kuungana na vigogo wa upinzani kwenye kikao cha pamoja, ambapo duru za sema uwezekano wa kuwa na mgombeaji mmoja ulizungumziwa kwa kina. Je, vinara hao watavuka visiki vilivyoangusha miungano ya awali kama Forum for Restoration of Democracy FORD? So that is the main headline over there, and on the sideline of the Taifa Leo the story is kumbe ajira nje zilikuwa hewa. Wakenya walia kwa majuto mbele ya seneti walivyodanganywa kuhusu ajira ugenini. So this is still the same story on the Ministry of Labor. CS Alfred Mutua was supposed to be speaking, or is set to actually speak next week on Tuesday to address these specific claims. Sasa hiyo ndio habari ambayo iko kwa Taifa Leo. Going down is shinikizo walioua Gen Z wanaswe. Upinzani mashirika ya kijamii ya shinikiza NPS, the National Police Service, kuwakamata maafisa waliohusika. So those are the key headlines there. And lastly on sports, gozi la Barca na Inter lipo licha ya tisho la umeme. So Barcelona walialika Milan leo usiku nusu finali ya klabu bingwa. So that was the game happening last night. And yeah, that is what we have for you on the Taifa Leo.
Now, on the People Daily, inside the big fight for Gen Z vote, as we are seeing opposition strategy to field one candidate, and so collision of top scientists. So we are seeing here inside the Gen Z vote a big fight for the Gen Z vote that is coming in the 2027 transition. Remember, it comes at a time when party leader, that is, Martha Karua, she renamed her party from NAK Kenya to People's Liberation Party in a bid to attract more youth vote. And hopefully we'll see how the, like I said, Raf, the coming 2027 elections will actually be one of the most watched, heavily contested, and eyes on that, because we're seeing also former deputy president, the impeached deputy president Rigathi Gachagua, and questions are being raised. Will he be allowed will he appear on the ballot, or won't he, or maybe he won't be allowed to vie? Because remember, once a leader is impeached, he cannot vie for the next 10 years. And remember, his case is still in court. His impeachment case, was it constitutional or was it not constitutional? Judgment is yet to be given.
Yes, indeed. And still on matters Gachagua, that political party that he is set to form, the specific date is set for May 15th. So that is the date that he has publicly disclosed for announcing his specific party. So we will be keeping you updated on that. And now,
and Raf, you just highlighted a story about CS Mutua's Qatar police jobs, which turns out to be a fiasco and hot air. You know, this is not the first time we are having government officials promise people trips abroad. Remember the Finland education scandal, and we had students from Wasingishu protesting all over the streets, confronting their leaders. We even saw one, Mercy Tarus. She came to the limelight due to that fiasco. So it raises a question: are our leaders being genuine to us? Can we trust our leaders, or Kenyans cannot? Can Kenyans really trust their leaders if we are having such repeated cases of leaders lying to Kenyans, collecting money from Kenyans, with nothing to give in return? Indeed,
indeed. And just a fun fact on that: the Kenyan home champion is actually not in Kenya anymore. So Kenya see home for her. But moving on to the other headlines. On the Business Daily, US flags Kenya as booming market for counterfeit goods. So the story highlighted here is that the United States has named Kenya among the leading markets for fake goods, exposing customers to safety and health dangers and denying American firms and government revenue. So the Donald Trump administration said in a report released on Tuesday that ineffective or inadequate intellectual property enforcement terms in the East African country are facilitating the entry of counterfeit goods largely from global manufacturing hubs in China, India, Turkey, and Vietnam. So the 2025 Special 301 report on intellectual property protection and enforcement cities. So that is the story there. We have been seeing different products. Are you one of the people who might be having a counterfeit product? Do you know how to tell the difference between a counterfeit product? We are a smartphone country, so different phones are in the market. Is the phone you have fake? Is the phone you have real? How can you tell? But this is the concern by Americans, especially for different products being shipped from China, Turkey, India, and Vietnam. So just below that, it's Nairobi military spending hits 166 billion on America. So Turkey orders. This story reads that Kenya military spending rose to 166 billion in 2024. Newly released global data shows marking the sharpest increase rate in 8 years as the country sought to modernize its defense system amid heightened security threats. So this was an increase of 12.7% from 147 billion. The country spent on its military in the 12 months to December 2023, according to data from the Sweden-based Stockholm International Peace Research Institute, SIPIRI. So those are the details that we have for you in these papers, considering that they're talking about increased expenditure by the police, and it's been such an interesting week highlighting what's been happening with the police. First, the Blood Parliament documentary being released, the story on the standard of government agencies calling on BBC to not air this documentary. So we are seeing a lot involving the police, and also 5 people killed just the other day. Like there's so much conflict.
Particularly on the 5 people killed on Monday. The Standard highlights the same story on page 2, and it continues, say, Ruto's name now dragged into the bloody 6,300-acre land controversy. So residents tell police boss to ask the president to state his involvement in the 6,300-acre land, and farmers and local leaders vow not to leave despite the killing of 6 people by police. So remember, when we first reported this story on Monday, 5 people had been killed, and now a development goes on that the number has risen to 6, and there were a number of people injured from that scaffolding, as well as police officers were also injured. There were videos doing rounds on social media of an officer bleeding on the head. So that was definitely a scuffle. Now it reads, a quote here by a resident, that is Jackson B. He says, the land belongs to us and no one will intrude. This is home and we are not going anywhere. Tell the president we are not going anywhere. So that is an allegation being labeled against President William Ruto. Is he trying to grab that land? Are these allegations true? And again, another morning we are having allegations being labeled against the president, and at no time we rarely see the president actually come out to respond to any of these. So according to a court order, so the story goes on, just below it says, Angata Barikoi, state defied court order not to evict the families. So these families are being evicted, and on Monday, there were officers who came to barricade the land, and that is when the chaos unfolded, leading to the death of up to 6 people. And now it is now emerging that the president's hand is in this. This is a new allegation. Hopefully he can respond to this.
Indeed. Now, on still matters politics and poor treatment of Kenyans, Imagine wanting a job. Imagine getting a job offer abroad. We are in the season of remote work, and people are more interested in traveling abroad for different opportunities. Now, a few Kenyans have fallen victim. This comes after CS Mutua released some jobs that turned out to be hot air, as we've talked about. So with the promise of well-paying employment, hopeful Kenyans paid a total of about 260,000 shillings to recruitment agencies, but they were deported a few days after arriving in the Gulf states. So they got in, they got out. However, just to break down these funds, there were health or medical checkups needed, costing about 15 to 30,000 shillings. And then there was the flight that was also needed to be facilitated, and then the visa requirements. So you can look at all these different expenses that these Kenyans were facing, and these are for jobs that they had been looking for a long time. So on December 11th, 2024, Labour CS Alfred Mutua assured President William Ruto and desperate job seekers that the government was closing a deal to have 200 Kenyans recruited into the Qatar police service. But it's not only the police or the police jobs that were on offer, because tears rolled down the eyes of victims of state-run job scandal as they narrated their ordeal. So disappointed applicants say that they have not received any refunds from agencies months after making payments. And these are not just any agencies. These are government agencies. So tears, regret, and millions of shillings vanishing into thin air characterized the heart-wrenching narrations to senators on Monday over unfulfilled promises for jobs in Middle East by their own government. It's quite a sad story. It's quite worrying, especially considering that there is an employment crisis in the country. It's been here for quite some time. President William Ruto, just like other presidents, are seeking to make it better. However, these type of situations by government specifically just makes the situation worse.
And remember, so we are having still on the same story. So Mudavadi says he targets the government targets fake job agencies, and he appeared before the Senate, the same Senate committee actually. And when he appeared before the Senate committee, he said that the government is committed to dealing with unscrupulous agents conning Kenyans out of millions of shillings with promises of non-existent jobs abroad. So it's actually it's funny actually, because Mudavadi knows these allegations being labeled against the Labour CS, that is Alfred Mutua, and we definitely will not see. We don't expect to see him maybe reprimanding or calling Mutua to order to respond to these allegations, because the government, it's like it has this tendency not to address things right, like, you know, to hit the nail on the head and say this person lied to Kenyans. And maybe at one point we can have leaders being held accountable, because Mudavadi, when he appeared before the Senate National Security and Defense and the committee, he said that the Ministries of Foreign Affairs and Labour is working to ensure that Kenyans are informed about the right countries to apply for jobs abroad. He said the government will also be sensitizing Kenyans on which places to avoid when seeking employment. He noted that some countries are well known for rampant human and organ trafficking. So I don't think Kenyans feel, in my opinion, I don't feel the government is doing enough in addressing the challenges that Kenyans are facing when it comes to applying for jobs abroad. First of all, the fake job agencies. If we are having Kenyans apply for jobs through the government and they're still not getting them and they still feel they are duped, who will we trust?
Yes.
Who will Kenyans trust?
Who will Kenyans trust indeed? And just like Francis Atwoli, the one in charge of Koto, said, in whose hands are we safe?
In whose hands are we safe?
Indeed. Now, still on matters politics but away from employment, politicians plan opposition coalition against Ruto. So political leaders say opposition unity is the only way to defeat Ruto in the 2027 elections. So just as we stated earlier, different party leaders, opposition party leaders, this is Fred Matiang'i, DP Gachagua, Martha Karua, Kalonzo Musyoka, and CS Muturi met yesterday. So, efforts by the opposition to unite against President William Ruto got off to a rocky start yesterday. This is after Wiper Party leader Kalonzo Musyoka camp protested the perceived imposition of an ally of former President Uhuru Kenyatta as the opposition flag bearer. So, according to how this setup is supposed to be, there's supposed to be one flag bearer. I think that part has been pretty clear. However, there's Kalonzo Musyoka, the Wiper Party leader. He is considered one of the most mature out of all of them, and he probably is seeking that seat to be the flag bearer. However, Fred Matiang'i has also gotten into the mix. So that is where the conflict is coming in, because people, according to these discussions in the coalition, are wondering who is going to be in charge, who is going to allow the other to lead the country. So here's a quote from Enoch Wambua. It is the clearest signal that President William Ruto will make history as Kenya's first one-term president. This is in support of these meetings that are ongoing for the formation of a coalition party. But Gachagua is also set to unveil a new party on May 15th. So according to this story, former Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua has finally settled on May 15th as the day he will launch a new party to take on President William Ruto's United Democratic Alliance in the upcoming by-elections, his allies have revealed. So the registered political party will be revealed ahead of major political jamboree on May 29th, set to be the formal launch date. So this is what is happening. We are seeing different alliances, allegiances being formed, and that is just how it's looking so far. But Fred Matiang'i is finally in the public eye.
Remember, Gen Z are saying they don't want any of the KANU orphans. They're calling them KANU orphans. That is the old political group. So according to Gen Z, they don't want any KANU orphan to run government again. They want fresh faces in parliament, in state house, in the executive, and among the issues the Gen Z are raising is that they don't want anyone with a tainted political history, with a tainted reputation, and they've even been calling out anytime Matiang'i, anyone tries to support Matiang'i on social media, you see another person countering the person, saying the former CS. There were many cases that happened during his tenure as the Interior Cabinet Secretary. Among them was the Rivayala killings, and he's still being blamed for that. He may not have killed people himself, but these incidents happened when he was in charge of the Interior Cabinet, the security docket. So we will be keeping you updated on that. Will Kenyans give us, particularly Gen Zs, will they come out to vote in large numbers as they have been talking on social media, or is it just social media talk? Remember, the older generation thinks Gen Zs are just talking. They're saying, we have seen this hype before. During, it was Peter Kenneth, there was a time he was vying and there was a lot of hype. People hyped him a lot, but when it got to the ballot,
it was a different
story. So will Kenyans, are Gen Zs really serious about getting a leader who has whose reputation is not tainted in any way? We will be keeping you updated on that.
For sure. And just still on matters politics, it is our duty to inform and to keep you updated. So when it comes to the elections, the general elections, have you registered as a voter? Have you been thinking of voting? Do you have a preferred candidate? These are the questions that you should be asking yourself as we prepare for 2027 elections. But now, on matters finance bill, IPOA is still probing killing of 60 protesters a year later as victims' identities are revealed. So just earlier this week, still on Monday, the BBC released a documentary called Blood Parliament. In the documentary, a few key suspects were highlighted as to be responsible for shooting down Kenyans, the protesters, innocent protesters, unarmed protesters, right at the parliament establishment. So, almost a year after at least 60 people were killed during the anti-government protest, the agency tasked with handling complaints against the police, says it is still conducting investigations. So out of 60 deaths registered with IPOA, the authority has completed 22 investigations and is pursuing 36, with only 2 currently in court. So 8 counties had these 60 Kenyans who were killed, and their names have been highlighted here on the Daily Nation. This is across Eldoret, Kisumu, Nakuru, Kakamega, Meru, Mombasa, Nyeri, and Nairobi, with the highest number of deaths registered during the finance bill protests. So it's been quite a heavy week. Despite this being the current conversation, yesterday, Cabinet held a meeting, talked about the new finance bill, Finance Bill 2025. They are saying there are no new taxes that will be recommended. They are saying that Kenyans should not be worrying about anything. And they are saying that it's set to be reduced by up to 4% or 5.4% actually. And considering that it was set at 4 trillion thereabouts, we are waiting to see if it will be about 3.8 trillion, that's now for the budget for this financial year, or if it will still be closer to the 4 trillion, because that is what got the country into the problem. And maybe an interesting fact is that according to Treasury CS, the country will not be depending on IMF. So all this, the whole budget will be completely run and financed by the Kenyan government. So yesterday it was approved. The exact figure of the finance bill is yet to be released, but 1 year later, 60 cases of Kenyans who died and no progress yet, with Amnesty International also calling for all these responsible police officers to be arrested. And just to put some emphasis on that point, opposition leaders in the civil society have piled pressure on the National Police Service and Kenya Defence Forces to arrest the officers implicated in the shooting and killing of demonstrators during the anti-government protests in June last year. The culprits that were highlighted in the BBC documentary are said to be KDF officers. That is from the badge that they are wearing, the uniform, the boots. It was quite a detailed documentary, and that is the current status of these cases.
Remember, the budget reading comes at a time. Kenyans are highly anticipating the new finance bill 2025-2026. And, you know, previously, before the 2024 finance bill, many Kenyans didn't even know that, they didn't understand the concept of finance bills. You know, people even thought that that was the first ever finance bill to ever exist. And some didn't know that a finance bill is read in Parliament every year, every June. So it actually brought about public awareness. We've also been seeing a lot of civil education after last year's finance bill, and this year's finance bill will actually be one of the most read finance bills after last year's finance bill. And moving forward, I think Kenyans will be more keen on what is happening around them politically, particularly what are the decisions our politicians are making, because they end up affecting us. Remember, all aspects of our lives are actually touched by politics.
Yes, and politics is everywhere, and politics is just, it's in us. It's in everyday matters, so you cannot avoid politics.
It cannot be avoided. You can't, you know, you meet these people who say I'm not into politics.
That does not make sense. It cannot even.
As a Kenyan, as a responsible Kenyan, you ought to be aware of what is happening in your environment, in your churches, in your schools. Yeah, it is all affected by politics.
Yes, indeed. And just at that point, before we continue with our newspaper review this morning, we're going to take a short break to sip some tea alongside you this morning as you prepare for your different endeavors. So just join us in a short break. Stay with us. Cheers.
Looking for a trusted supplier for all your household hardware needs? Look no further than Competitive Hardware Limited. We provide top quality building materials including cement, all types of iron sheets, paints, PPR and PVC pipes, electric pipes, building grills, BRC and square till in various sizes. Need interior and finishing materials? We've got you covered with gypsum rails, marine boards, ceiling boards and tanks of all sizes. For fencing, we stock barbed wire, chain link and wire mesh. And the best part, we offer free countrywide delivery with our fleet of transit trucks and pickups. Your order arrives on time, every time. Visit us in Kitengela along Namanga Highway, opposite 411 stage, or at our branches in Kitusuru and Busia. For enquiries, call us on 020-26-88-888 or 0733-666632 or 0721-923248. Competitive Hardware Limited, your reliable hardware supplier.
Almarai Company, in collaboration with Competitive Manpower, is urgently hiring for the following exciting roles: Grade 1 mechanics, panel beaters, refrigeration technicians, lead mechanics, diesel plant mechanics, welders and stainless steel welders. Why apply? This is a free recruitment with no application or placement fees required. Contact us today on 0721 506627 or 0733 392180. You can also visit us at WANGUTUSI Plaza, Kikorok Road. Alternatively, you can send an email to info@competitivemanpower.com. Apply now. Limited slots available. Welcome to Competitive Training Institute, empowering you with in-demand skills. At Competitive Training Institute, we equip you with practical, job-ready skills that open doors both locally and internationally. Whether you're aiming to become a qualified caregiver, certified plumber, skilled automotive mechanic, or want to learn a foreign language like French, Arabic, or German, and many more, we've got the right course for you. Our hands-on training, guided by experienced instructors and aligned with market demands, ensures you're ready to compete and succeed in today's job market. We don't just train, we help you get hired. Our job placement team supports you in finding meaningful work after graduation. We are proudly accredited by NITA, ensuring high standards in all we offer. Ready to begin? Call us on 020-200-192 or 0721-223081 or email us at competitivetraining@gmail.com. Your journey starts here. Let's build your future together.
Join our team at AYTB in partnership with Competitive Manpower. AYTB is seeking qualified candidates for the following positions: Technical Advisor, QA or QC Personnel, Shop Coordinator, Report Organizer, Rotating Equipment Repair Technician, Valve Overhaul Technician, Machining Technician.
Contact us today on 0721 506627 or 0733 392180. You can also visit us at WANGUTUSI Plaza, Kikorok Road. Alternatively, you can send an email to info@competitivemanpower.com. Apply now. Limited slots available.
All right, welcome back to CBS Breakfast Show. This is the Morning Brew, and we are continuing with some interesting stories. What is happening on the Standard?
So here on the Standard newspaper, they are highlighting a story on page 3. The headline reads, Radio Great Edward Quach signs off for good. Radio King Edward Quach, who passed on Monday, had been battling meningitis. quite becoming voice and magnetic presence lit up Kenya's airwaves for decades. So I think most Kenyans are actually familiar with him. We've seen him on the Situation Room on, that is Spice FM, Standard Group. He has worked on radio for so many years, and we've seen also some radio kings like radio host Maina Kageni. He has condoled with the family, and he says his voice resonated with authenticity and passion, captivating audiences for far and wide. He was more than just a host, he was a beacon of inspiration.
Yes, indeed. Quite some sad news there.
Sad news, yeah.
And still on more sad news, there was a story that has been highlighted throughout the week of 4 sisters. So the story reads, this is on page 10 of the Daily Nation, "Dad took turns with us, sisters speak on abuse." So this is a group of 4 sisters, and it reads, for years, 4 sisters suffered sexual abuse at the hands of their own father, who also forced them to procure abortions after impregnating them multiple times. So the eldest is 20 years old, followed by 17, 12, and 10. So according to the eldest, this abuse started when she was in high school, just on her first term, and she was unable to talk to the mother because the father was telling her that he is the sole bearer of the family, and therefore, in case the daughter reported to the mother, then they would have nothing. So this was total threats to the girl, but what got more concerning for her is that she noticed the same thing was happening with her younger sister, the 17-year-old, then the 12-year-old, and the worst case that led to this whole story being unfolded is that the 10-year-old sister, or the 17 and the 20-year-old sisters learned and witnessed the father calling in the 10-year-old sister into the room and abusing her. So this was always during holidays where the father would call them into a room, apparently when watching movies, and it was totally inappropriate, totally horrific, and just totally sad. So that is the story on page 10. If you get a chance, just please go through this paper. The girls were finally rescued, and they were taken to the hospital where they were checked, and it was realized that the youngest was abused just 24 hours prior to that case being dealt with, or at least until authorities were advised. So the mother was in Kitale. They were staying away from each other. The eldest sister who is actually studying in Nairobi, in Nairobi University, and it's just totally sad. We've been having cases and different stories of gender-based violence and sexual violence cases increasing. We've talked about over 90 deaths reported so far, because according to this story, the father also threatened to kill the girl in case she talked about what she was going through. So it's quite a courageous final act for her to save all her siblings, and this was after noticing that it had gone on for way too long, and it was not showing any signs of stopping, because it was also affecting the cousins. There's also a cousin there, the friends of the girls in their school. Like it's just totally sad, and that is the story on page 10 of the Daily Nation.
That is indeed a very sad story. I think it leaves one speechless, because it just leaves one speechless. You expect that a parent would be the first person to protect their child, and now it turns out a parent, a man, is actually the one causing harm to the daughters, and he's extending actually even to the cousins, which is very bad. Hopefully justice can be served and those girls can get psychological counseling to help them deal with the trauma of that abuse. Now moving on to another story here in the Standard newspaper, page 8, Atwoli will defend his post next year, says the Kotu board says. So according to the executive board members of the Central Organization of Trade Unions, they have announced that Francis Atwoli will defend his seat as Secretary General of the Umbrella Workers Body. So speaking in Nairobi on Tuesday, the board dismissed claims that Mr. Atwoli will be retiring soon. This comes after Atwoli, in a recent meeting with the shop stewards and 2,000 elected Kotu affiliated leaders, hinted at a possibility of taking retirement. So, but now the board says Atwoli will still be remaining. Remember, he has been at the helm of that seat for more than 2 decades. And have Kenyans felt really any impact? Particularly Kenyan workers, have they felt any impact? He has served with different presidents from the Moi leadership. We've seen him with the Uhuru leadership. Now he's here under the Ruto leadership. Will he still? How long will he sit at the helm of the Kotu? As the chair as the Secretary General, and particularly in terms of workers, are Kenyans actually? Do you feel Kenyans, particularly Kenyan workers, do you feel they've felt an impact of Atwoli's work? Because he recently said, even on social media, that once he leaves that seat, Kenyans will really miss him.
Well, personally, I'd have to keep those opinions locked as I wait to also see after he leaves, if personally I'll miss him as a new young entry into this workforce. However, yeah, let's just wait and see how that goes.
But remember, by the time Francis Atwoli will be leaving that position, we'll definitely be giving you a highlight of some of the most impactful things he has done as he's still sitting on the helm of the Kotu Secretary General position. So we'll be keeping you updated on that.
Nice. And now on to some other tragic news. There was an attack in Mandera where 5 quarry employees were shot by a suspected Al-Shabaab militia. So security team wants to be informed why the driver of the vehicle went against the measures put in place from December of 2014. So following the first attack back in 2014, where about 36 Kenyans were killed, the area, that this is Mandera County, came up with some regulations which include, if you are a quarry worker or you are just an employed person working somewhere, you will always have transportation with security officers. However, in this case of the latest event which took place yesterday, the driver of the said quarry left at 6 a.m. That is not the prescribed time. They're supposed to leave at 7 a.m. accompanied by the officers. So by them leaving earlier, by that 6 a.m. without any security forces, they were attacked by a group of 10 armed Al-Shabaab officers, shooting at the vehicle and killing 5 people instantly. So at least 5 quarry workers were killed and 2 others injured by suspected Al-Shabaab militants in Mandera yesterday morning. And security team said the group of 21 miners was heading to Bur Abor quarry when it was ambushed. So in figures, important dates and years, in years and numbers, is that 21 is the number of miners in the ill-fated van. 5 is the number of quarry workers who were killed. 2015 is when the new rules of transporting workers to quarries came into place. 20 is the number of people, 20th December of 2014 is when Al-Shabaab attacked a mine, killing 36 people, 36 employees. And 22nd April this year, a Safaricom technician was also abducted in the same area. So the whereabouts and the fate of the Safaricom technician are still unknown up to right now, but this is the current status in Mandera. We are yet to hear what the DG of police will say, and also what Nudin Haji will say about this, because the security concerns are quite high, and it's alarming that we've reported so many deaths in just 3 days into the week. So that is the update on what is happening there.
Now moving on to matters health. A headline here by the Standard on page 8 reads, Council to crack down on foreign doctors working in Kenya illegally. So the Kenya Medical Practitioners and Dentists Council has pledged to crack down on illegal practitioners. So KMPDC data shows that up to 17,749 locally registered doctors, of whom 11,751 are currently practicing. So in contrast, 1,663 licensed foreign doctors are registered in Kenya, but only 546 are actively practicing. So on the lookout for that. You could be, the doctor attending to you could actually not be having a license. And so you're seeing here the council will be cracking down on those foreign doctors working in Kenya illegally. Remember, you could, if you land into the hands of a wrong doctor, or maybe one who has a fake certification, you could end up dead. So this is actually a good move by the KMPDC to ensure that Kenyans are being treated in hospitals by doctors who are actually given the go-ahead, the right go-ahead with the right procedures to attend to Kenyans.
Nice. And now on to matters business news. Workers oppose Chemelil Sugar Mill lease bid. So Chemelil Sugar Company Workers Union has opposed an alleged plan to lease the troubled miller to Kibos Sugar and Allied Industries Limited. The workers, through the Kenya Union of Sugar Plantation and Allied Workers, KUSPAW, claimed that the state planned to hand the deal to Kibos, which was ranked as the lowest bidder. So as we speak, this is a quote by one of the leaders there. As we speak today, we are informed that the management has been called for an urgent meeting to the Ministry of Agriculture headquarters in Nairobi to hand over before the planned takeover by Kibos Sugar, said Jack Osida, Secretary of the KUSPAW branch. So that is what is happening in line with sugar. Kenya blames IMF, World Bank for textiles collapse. So Trade Ministry says structural adjustment programs resulted in industry wars. Kenya has blamed the World Bank and International Monetary Fund IMF for the collapse of the textile industry as mitumba, these are second-hand clothes, problem plague revival efforts. Earlier this month or mid-month, we spoke about how the Trade CS has been planning, or at least alleged, to remove mitumba in a bid to improve textile industry in Kenya, because according to him, all the emerging industries in the world are only able to perform at their peak level because they are not hindered by mitumba. But Kenya is apparently a mitumba country, and the last time that this type of reform was made caused a lot of havoc in the country. So that is what is happening there. In a new policy to guide the revival of the cotton, textile and apparel industry, the Ministry of Investment, Trade and Industry blames the IMF and the World Bank for the industry decline since the introduction of structural adjustments programs, these are SAPs, in the early 1990s. So just a quote here. One of the key factors that led to the collapse of the cotton industry in Kenya was the implementation of SAPs imposed by World Bank and IMF, says the ministry. So 578 million is the value of raw cotton in shillings that Kenya was exporting to various markets by 1929. This is 1929, and now we are in 2025. So if we are exporting 578 million, imagine how many billions that will be right now without the mitumba. But that's a very touchy subject when it comes to matters business and also politics. Still on the pages here, just a rundown is that Labour Court okays hiring of new AFA boss. The Employment Labour Relations Court has dismissed a petition challenging Bruno Mugambi Linyuri appointment as the Director General of Agriculture and Food Authority. Banks, SACCOs, affordable home loan funds. So the Kenya Mortgage Refinance Company, KMRC, is also reviewing documents from 42 commercial banks and SACCOs for eligibility to start accessing funds for onward lending to potential home buyers. So if you're thinking about buying a home, if you're thinking about mortgages, that might be some good news. And lastly, Nigeria seeks 4 Kenyans in crypto platform hacking. So Nigeria Economic Financial Crimes Commission has launched a manhunt for 4 Kenyans suspected of involvement in an incident in which users lost money on cryptocurrency and forex trading platforms. So there's quite a lot happening in the country. Forex trading, gambling, betting. There's currently a ban, 30-day ban for all betting. There's no betting ads on any platform, TV, social media, newspapers, because the epidemic of betting is getting worse for Kenyans, and this is what the ministry has decided to do to control the surge of these cases.
Particularly for unemployed youth, many of them are engaging in betting, and we've also seen cases trending on social media of Kenyans committing suicide after losing school fees. There's some even imprisoned. I saw a woman, a lady who, in a chama, a woman's chama, she used the money to bet, and now the fellow women in the chama decided now huyu tunamfunza adabu, so they took her to court, you know. So she hopes she would bet with this money, double it, increase it, you know, that I don't know if it's greed, it's hope, but whatever that feeling is, it's costly. It's turning out to be very costly.
Yes, it is very costly indeed. And just a fun fact, betting is not an investment initiative. Betting is not in any way close to an investment. It may provide the hope that it is an investment. However, investments do not work like that. So that's how that is.
Now, before we proceed to sports story, I'm seeing here an interesting headline on page 12. MPs now invite public views on kidney cell saga. And you know, I just saw this headline, and the first question that came to mind was the kidney cell saga. What exactly is the government expecting Kenyans to comment on? Because from Kenyans, from what Kenyans were expecting was for the government, the Ministry of Health, to simply ensure that the Tissue Transplant Act, the Health Acts are adhered to ensure that the dignity and the integrity of the health profession is upheld. Because after the allegations that Medihill Hospital has been conducting illegal kidney transfers, we're just hoping, Kenyans were simply hoping for investigations into that matter and some arrests and more stern warnings and stern adherence to the rules. So what are Kenyans expected to say, that we support this or we don't? Because government,
it's hard to tell, eh?
It's hard to tell. We'll be keeping you updated on that. Remember, the government has selected a committee, a 13-member committee, to look into to probe the Medihill Hospital dealings, and they have been given time up to 3 months to come up with that report. We hope Kenyans will not forget this saga, and that someone will actually be held accountable on this kidney saga.
Yes, indeed. And now on to matters sports news. Agnes Chebet, how I broke women only 10-kilometer record. So she hopes her exploits put her in good standing ahead of the 2025 World Athletic Championship. And just a highlight on it is that Kenyan runner Agnes Chebet Ngetich has credited her record-breaking run on Saturday in Adziero Road to Records race in Germany to rigorous training, good work ethic, and her never say die attitude in races she competes in. So we've been talking about how Kenyans invented running, and just a quote from Agnes is that, "I had done well in previous races, which helped me perform well, but I had just planned to run a good race in Germany. A world record wasn't on my mind." So apparently she was not planning on it, but she definitely delivered because of her previous work ethic. So still on that is that 255 million rather in Cricket League set to bring stars to Kenya. So Cricket Kenya, CK, plans a high-profile 20 league that could bring some of the world's finest cricketers to Nairobi. So cricket is one of those interesting sports in the country. We are seeing that there is some opportunities there, and that is what is happening on that end.
Now from my end here in the Standard newspaper, Wanyonyi versus Arop. So who will break Rudisha's 800 meters world record between Wanyonyi and Arop? So with advancements in training techniques, competition spikes and race pacing strategies, Rudisha's world record is under threat this season. Rudisha's world record has been in place since the Kenyan set it in 2012, more than 10 years ago actually, in Olympic Games in London on his way to Olympic gold. And now we are having Wanyonyi and Arop. Who among them will actually break Rudisha's record? A record that has been standing for more than 10 years, since 2012. All the best to Arop and Wanyonyi.
Yes, indeed. And now football matters. FKF Women's Cup gets 4.3 million boost. So the fourth edition of the Football Kenya Federation FKF Women's Cup kicks off this week, and with a record 32 teams and a significant boost in sportsmanship and player incentives. So for the first time, the tournament has attracted an official sponsor, with betting firm Betting Power committed to 4.3 million in bonuses through its locker room bonus initiative. So it's a bit interesting and funny at the same time that betting is at least restricted for 30 days, and yet betting companies are currently the biggest sponsors of some of these football teams. So we are seeing that also FKF Women's Cup is set to receive 4.3 million from our betting company. So think about that. And just a quote from FKF president is that this collaboration with Bet Power is a game changer for the FKF Women's Cup. So quite some interesting stories there. Anything you'd like to close on that?
I'll close in here with the Yamal Stardust could give back her edge on Inter Milan. So should Barcelona win the Champions League, Yamal is a potential Ballon d'Or winner. And Barcelona hosts Italian champions in first leg of Champions League semis. So Barcelona reached the Champions League final a decade ago with Lionel Messi as their torchbearer. Now the Catalan giants rely on another generational talent in Lamine Yamal as their X factor when they host Inter Milan today in a semi-final first leg clash. So today's Champions League semi-final, we have Barcelona versus Inter Milan at 10 p.m. And there's a match fact there. Did you know that Barcelona could do with a first leg lead? Inter are unbeaten and their first 15 Champions League home matches since 2-0 defeat against Bayern in the group stage in 2022. Yeah, so those are the stories making headlines. We'll definitely be keeping you updated on who wins the game between Barcelona and Inter Milan in today's 10 p.m. game.
Amazing. And yes, those are all the stories that we have for you this morning on the newspaper review. For the stories that have caught your mind, that have caught your interest, please do look for your newspaper and find those stories. We have been here, your lovely hosts this morning. My name is Raf Wangutusi.
My name is DANFLOW. Lindwe, remember, the universe submits to your will.
Take care. See you then. Cheers. You know, that was 1 hour straight.
You're doing good.
Yes, yes.